What's up, folks? Thomas Tao. I'm here at the VinePair office in beautiful New York, And today we are looking at a hotly anticipated release. It is the latest in the Toasted Barrel Finish series from Michter's, the Kentucky-based whiskey brand. This is Toasted Barrel Finish Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey. We're gonna get into this, but before we do, make sure you subscribe to VinePair on YouTube. I'm asking very nicely, so I'd really appreciate it if you did. Also, if you want my full notes on this, including more specific release details, tasting notes, aromas, all that nerdy jazz, make sure you click on the link in the description below. That's my full review. I go into a heck of a lot more detail than I do in these videos, but I still enjoy these videos and I get to taste a lot of whiskey. So Michter's takes their base US 1 rye and they finished it in toasted barrels for an undisclosed period of time. And those are toasted, not charred barrels. The other thing to keep in mind is they don't actually give a lot of specifics on what those barrels are like, the wood that's used, how long they're toasted for. It's all kind of a mystery. This says bottled by Michter's Distillery, Louisville, Kentucky. It does not say distilled by. Now, Michter's has been distilling since 2015. They're actually a much older brand. They began distilling again in their current form in or around 2015, but they also sourced a lot of whiskey. They sourced those barrels from other distilleries. So there's a good chance, but we don't know for sure, that some of the liquid contained herein is actually sourced from other producers. Honestly, Michter's is great at sourcing. Some of their source stuff is among my favorite whiskey, period. Oh, but you're probably wondering about cost. Yeah, the retail on this, 120 bucks. This is a limited release, and the Michter's Toasted series is very, let's say, in demand. So expect to potentially see this marked up. We don't have any info on bottle count. We don't know exactly how available it is, but these do tend to fly off shelves. So if you're lucky enough to get one, those are the stats, at least the stats that I know. Because this isn't one big batched product, there's gonna be variation from barrel to barrel. This is a barrel strength product. So I think the average in this release was about 108.9 proof. This one is 109.4 proof, so just over that average for the release. But we don't know until we try, and that's why we're gonna try it. Right off the dome, black cherry walnut extract. Boom, done, review over. No, I'm kidding. We're gonna go more in depth here. But yeah, black cherry walnut extract, toffee, saltwater taffy. Toffee and taffy are different. I didn't know that until like 2 years ago, by the way. There's a salinity here. I say saltwater taffy because like there's a salty note on the nose. It's not necessarily bad, that's just what it is. Look, the wood is strong with this one. This is an aged rye finished in an additional toasted barrel. It's gonna pick up a lot of wood influence. The toffee, the taffy, the walnut, the black cherry, there's like an undercurrent of wood. You know, I don't get as much rye on this as I would think. I think if I were to nose this next to just Michter's base rye expression, there'd be probably a pretty big difference. This is just a ton of wood influence. It makes me really curious how it's gonna translate to the palate. Honey, pecans, semi-sweet chocolate. Like, you know, you buy the bag of the semi-sweet chocolate chips that you then cook down into whatever you're baking, and you eat like half the bag yourself and the recipe never quite works out because you didn't have enough chocolate going to the final thing. That's what this tastes like. Oh, and heavy wood. This tastes a little bit like Derby pie. You ever had Derby pie? It's like pecan pie and you add a bunch of chocolate to it. There's more spice than on the nose. You know how I had trouble picking out that rye on the nose? I definitely get it here. I get that sweetness from the wood. Toasted barrels can impart a lot of additional sweetness because the whiskey picks up additional sugars from the wood. Yeah, wood has sugar, it's kind of interesting. But the chocolate, the walnut, some of that honey, it's layered on top of that rye. So definitely a more complex palate than I'm getting on the nose. But I really didn't know what to think about this whiskey till we got to the finish, and there were a few things that stuck out to me for good and bad. And I think actually this is gonna be one of the more polarizing releases on the whiskey calendar this year, and I'll tell you why. So the finish is long, it's cinnamony, but it's drying, and it loses that sweetness, and it loses some of that balance, the balance between the sweet notes and some of those more like robust astringent notes from the wood. And it just kind of like, it just really drags the finish down just a little bit. I was a little iffy on this on the nose. I really enjoyed the palate, but the finish, yeah, not the highest point to me. It actually almost drinks a little bit above proof, which is saying something because this is over 109 proof. Michter's Toasted Barrel Finish Kentucky Straight Rye Whiskey. We do know this is distilled in Kentucky. We just don't know if Michter's necessarily distilled it all. I'm giving this 91 points out of 100. It's a delicious whiskey. I could drink a lot of this, and I probably will, but we know Michter's is capable of true greatness. They really started the toasted barrel finish trend in 2014, and some of the rye expressions in this series, especially 2017, knocked it out of the park. I don't think this quite hits that. 91 points, very drinkable, very shareable, but am I gonna shell out well over retail for this? I don't know, that's up to anyone, right? And I think this is gonna be very polarizing. I think some people are gonna really like this. Some people are gonna be like, David, why didn't you score it higher? But I think some people are gonna be like, David, why didn't you score it lower? And to those people, I would say, well, I'm looking for haters because it means I'm doing something right. I wanna know what you think, if you've tried this expression, if you think my score is accurate, or if you have any other favorites in their toasted barrel finish series, either bourbon or rye. Until then, I'm David Thomas Tao. Thanks for tuning in.